Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Erik Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health. How's it going, man? What's happening? Very interesting times, is it not? Is it not? Did you know that, depending on when you're listening to this, did you know that as of recording this, the day that is what I'm going to be talking about is coming up? Did you know that it is soon to be the 10-year anniversary of the financial collapse? Did you know that? Actually, I don't think it was the financial collapse. I think it was those big banks started closing. So like Lehman Brothers and that was the big one. Who else? I mean, you had Bear Stearns. Those were the two big ones, Lehman and Bear. And then by the grace of God, all the other, I think, Morgan Stanley, they went down and then got bought up, I think, by Bank of America. You had Countrywide, all the mortgage companies basically failed. And it's the 10-year anniversary of that. And I wanted to use this, I almost said fantastic day. I just want to use this fantastic occasion to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of one of the worst moments of most people's lives in the last 10 years. I want to use this opportunity to this moment to talk about money, and money in terms of like holistic spirituality. So I want to do that because I think it's important. I think a lot of the health community, I find it interesting. The more that I get into this stuff, the more that I see the intersection of health and business and health and money. It's very interesting, and there's several different angles to it. So I want to dive into all that. But before I do, I want to first remind you, if you are new to the podcast, or if you've been here before and you haven't done this yet, take a hot second and hit the subscribe button right there in your podcast player. You made it all the way to the podcast, and you haven't subscribed yet. What are you doing with your life? Hit the subscribe button. It's right there. You did all the other things, so just press one more button. It's not even a hard press. It's not like one of those big, like tough, press me buttons or whatever they sell at Staples. It's not like the nuclear button. It's just a button that's right there on your iPhone screen or your Android or your flip phone if you're listening to this back in 2003. Wherever you're at in life, just hit the subscribe button and go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review for the podcast, because even though you haven't listened yet, you got to know it's going to be fire. So the financial crisis was a big moment for me, big learning opportunity for the Holistic A-Hole. Learned some of my most important life lessons 10 years ago. Actually, I don't think it was 10 years ago that this happened for me. Although I do remember exactly where I was 10 years ago, now that we mention this. 10 years ago, I was running a comedy show in a Mexican restaurant patio on top of a fire pit. A fake fire pit, I should mention. This is Arizona. Why would we have a fire pit on a patio? It's already 150 degrees. What are we trying to get it to 200? We trying to crank it up a little hot? No, it's fake fire. And the comedians performed in front of this, on top of this fake fire pit, and 4 people watched. And sometimes they gave us free nachos, and that was awesome. But now that I'm the Holistic A-Hole, I wouldn't touch those goddamn nachos. I would politely, fuck that. I would take those nachos and I'd throw them on the ground and I'd stomp on them. I'd be like, this is what I think of Monsanto and the pesticides and the GMOs. And then I would apologize. I'd be like, I'm sorry. I feel like an asshole for doing that in this public restaurant. You were nice enough to not only give me a space to to do comedy and pursue my dreams in the arts, but then you rewarded me with free, delicious Arizona Mexican restaurant nachos. I'll see my way out. So I was doing this show, and then I remember the day that the Lehman failed. I had no idea who Lehman was, or Bear Stearns, or was there another one? That somebody else failed, right? I think Goldman Sachs failed a little bit. JP Morgan was failing a little bit. All the big banks were failing because they were all tied together. And then it was like, what do we do now? And then the government came and bailed them all out. And it was a big moment, man. It was a big moment. I think that was when that was just before the election, right? Or had that happened already? No, that was just before the election. And then we elected Obama, and then he fixed everything, and everything is good as it could ever be. So it was a big deal because that was the first time I ever saw like the worst case scenario play out. You know, that moment that you fear, that you think about, that every decision you make hinges on, you know, that what if moment, right? Because everything we do, you know, if we didn't think about the worst case scenario, like the worst thing that could happen, in this case, the entire financial system essentially just collapsing like dominoes, really, you know, if we didn't think about those things, we would just agree to do everything. We would just agree to do everything that sounded good. And to be honest with you, in the 2000s, man, in really those years between like 99 and 2008, that's basically what was happening. You wanted a credit card? You can go get a credit card for as much money as you wanted. You wanted a house? You get a house, you get a couple houses. And they don't have to be shit houses. They could be real nice houses, you know, again, Arizona house, we're talking houses. We're talking like McMansions, you know, we're talking people who worked at Blockbuster, owned 4-bedroom houses with pools and 3-car garages and basketball hoops and nice carpet and all that stuff, man. That's what it was. That's what it was the time of. And nobody thought once this is going to collapse. Nobody thought at all that this was going to end at any point. No one ever thought that. I remember just seeing so many people buying houses. And that was the thing. Like everybody either owned a house or was a mortgage agent or a real estate agent, or they worked somewhere within like the housing, like plumbing or electric work. They sold, you know, ceiling fans, whatever it was. It was a mania, and everybody was in on it. And not one time did anybody ever say, hey, what if this all just stops working? Nobody ever said that. Not one person. If you were the person who said that, by the way, people would probably laugh at you. There might have been, you know what? There were people. There were people who saw this, and subsequently a lot of those people who saw this coming made the most money out of it. And you know what's funny is I noticed that people condemn those people, you know, like the mainstream press will just say something like, or these authors or whatever, these correspondents or whatever these people are who just have all the opinions that people parrot around the internet. You know, what they say is that the economy tanked because there were greedy people who made money off the crash. These are things you hear people say on like MSNBC and CNN and ABC Nightly News and CBS and even Fox and, you know, all these just mainstream media outlets. You know, they condemn the people who saw the crash coming, warned people about the crash, and then when the crash didn't come, said, all right, fuck it. I'm going to short some goddamn subprime mortgage backed securities, and made out like bandits. If you saw The Big Short, this is what the whole Big Short was about. I read that book before the movie came out, not to brag. I spent a lot of time researching this because I myself was a victim. I was a victim. Oh my God, I was a victim of the housing crisis. Oh, wrap me in blankets and take me to your shelter and feed me a hot meal of government subsidized cheese and gruel because I was a victim of the housing market. Ugh, no, I was an idiot who bought into all this dumb propaganda, all this mind-numbing bullshit that they don't have to spoon feed you. They just leave it in disgusting clumps in the middle of gross streets and people just run and grab them because they see other people running and grabbing them and they go, well, if everybody else is doing it, then I gotta run and make a stupid, uninformed decision myself. And then when it doesn't go right, at least I can fall back and label myself a victim. I'm a victim. Please, somebody wrap me in blankets. Give me some yarn and I'll do it myself because I'm a victim. Shut up, man. Shut up. This was all simple math in the end. If you live a life that is clearly beyond what you have put out and subsequently earned, you're going to fucking fail. You're going to crash. And that's what happened to the financial crisis, to the housing market in 2008, because everybody had a credit card, everybody had a mortgage. Everybody was, going to the club at least 3 nights a week. Everybody was driving nice cars. Everybody had, the nice clothes. And then all of a sudden we realized that, it was all built on unicorn jizz. It was all built on nothing. Literally nothing. It was built on mathematical equations and algorithms. That's it. No real value was created. No real value at all. And we didn't learn our lesson in the dot-com boom. We didn't learn our lesson in the S&P crash. I meant dot-com crash, the boom, then the crash. We didn't learn our lesson in the 70s with whatever was happening in the 70s. We didn't learn our lesson in the 20s. We never learned our lesson. We never learned the lesson. It's just history repeats itself over and over and over again. But the thing is I didn't know the history when I bought a house. I knew no history. All I knew was that I was in the matrix, that I was going to work every day, and I was lucky enough to save up money. And I was like, I'm going to go, everybody around me's buying a house. You hear all the stories of not just buying houses, but then flipping houses and making insane amounts of money. Everybody I knew was doing that. Everybody I knew was, cashing out. I mean, it was to the point where it was like, you go buy a house that's not going to even start getting built for 6 months. You go buy that lot, you go buy that house. And then before anything is built on that house, before they even put a shovel in the ground to start digging out the foundation, that house has been bought and sold maybe a half a dozen times, maybe even a dozen times, many times. Many more times than a house that doesn't even exist should be bought and sold. And then they build the house. And every time they put something more on the house just gets more and more expensive. But, from the time that you buy the house from the guy in the trailer, it's $80,000 or $150,000. By the time they put the roof on it, it's $450,000. It's literally the point where they're putting tiles on the roof, and each tile they put on the house adds another grand of value to the house. That's what it was like. And nobody stopped and said, what's going on? Nobody stopped and said, what are we doing? Nobody stopped and said, has anybody actually looked at the numbers of this? Nobody, not one person stopped and said that. Everybody who I talked to, who were also, people worked for banks, people were accountants, I knew people who were mortgage, everybody in this business. It was like you could not tell somebody that this was going to crash. In fact, what people said was real estate is the safest investment. It never goes down, ever. It only goes up, even if it's going up at exponential rates beyond what anybody could have ever imagined. It's just always going to go up. So just keep buying in. Where's all this money even coming from? Where's all these numbers even coming from? Oh, from securities, from mortgage. We're using these to create even bigger financial instruments that can be packaged and sold. And every time a house gets made, and I hate to tell you, but this is where a lot of the immigration problem started. Just who's going to build the houses? Man, I saw neighborhoods. I saw entire cities get built. Entire cities in less than a year. In less than a year. If you look at the statistics of, I think it's like 1999 to 2005, or 2008. I mean, Arizona had 3 of the top 5 fastest growing cities in the country. And, in 1998, 3 of those cities didn't even exist. That's how crazy it was. They built entire cities, and who built those houses? Not the Americans. They designed the houses. The Americans got the funding for the houses. They did all the work but build the houses. Guess who did that? Oh yeah, all the brown people coming across the border, and nobody was stopping them. Everybody was like, yeah, come on in. We need you. We need you. Get in here. We need you to work for $1.50 an hour and build entire cities. That's what it was, dude. And I got caught up in it. I bought, a house because I just didn't know what else to do. I was like, why would I not buy a house? I bought a house. I had no business buying a house. I didn't even want it. I didn't want to live there anymore. And then I bought a house, and it was just the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. I had no handy skills. I had a plan to just have a house and then fix it up and flip it. I had no handy skills whatsoever. In fact, I had a girlfriend who she had handy skills, and she worked in the plumbing industry. And my plan was to have her do all the handiwork, and then she broke up with me. So none of the handiwork got done. And the house just was, it just looked like a crack den for 3 years that I lived there. And then finally I just fucking left it. I didn't even move out properly. I just left stuff in there. I just was like, screw this. That's what was happening in Arizona. People were just abandoning houses. I was like, if they're going to do it, I'm going to do it. I didn't care. I was like, what are you going to do? Am I going to go bankrupt? Uh-oh. What does credit mean? Who cares about credit? I don't want to own anything on credit ever again. This was the dumbest thing I ever did. The dumbest. Why would I? If I'm going to start a small business, I'm going to get, there's a million ways to get funding now. You can fund it yourself. You can do your own Kickstarters. You can, go to a venture capitalist, tell them your thing. You could have just the most rock bottom shit garbage credit. It doesn't matter. Because your credit score, it's like they lower your credit score if you look at your credit score too many times. If you're just like, I wonder what my credit score is. I'm applying for an apartment. I'm applying for jobs. I'm doing something where they need to see my credit score. So I'm looking at it a couple of times. Oh, they ding your credit score. Well, then fuck it. Who cares? I don't want your stupid credit. I'll get my money my own way. I don't need the government's FICO score or whatever it is. So I said, screw it. I don't care about my credit. And I abandoned the goddamn house. And I said, I'll never make that mistake again. I'll never live beyond my means. Never. Never. It's the most dishonest thing you could do. It's the most dishonest energy you could ever create for yourself and for those around you. Trying to live a life that isn't even real, that you have no business, if you don't work enough, if you don't put out the energy and the results and the work and the discipline and the effort and the love and the caring and the raw materials, if you don't put out and give, you don't deserve anything in return. If you don't work to own a 4-bedroom house if you just come into it. I mean, if it's like an inheritance, that's one thing. Even then, that can cause some issues. But if you just are living this life on credit, you're going out to nightclubs and spending, so much money every weekend or maybe even every night. You're going out to dinners, and you're spending more money, and it's all going on credit because you don't have the actual money in your account to pay for it. That means you don't get to do that stuff. That means you aren't there in life. That's just being honest with yourself. And that's what we don't do in this culture. We don't be honest with ourselves. We live our lives in social media, and we live our lives in pop culture, and we live our lives with the evening news, and none of that stuff creates our reality at all. It creates a fake reality that in your mind you're living, but your body and your values, they're not there. That's not truly who you are. And the people that you're trying to keep up with, that's not truly who they are. They're living a lie, and you're living a lie based off of their lie. And then your lie just takes you down like quicksand, bro. Like quicksand. It like grabs your foot at your ankle and then your knee and just pulls you down. The second you feel like you have it under control, you're like, all right, everything's stable, everything's good, I got this. You just think a little bit beyond your means. You're like, I can do that, man. I should get a car. I could totally get a car. And then now you have a car payment. Now you have a car payment, and you don't have the funds for that car payment. You thought you did, but you actually don't. Because the funds you thought you had are actually going to other things that you do enjoy doing, or just living your life, Now it's going to not just the car, but now it's going to the car payments, it's going to the insurance, it's going to the tires, going to the oil change, going to the gas, going to the paint job, going to the window tints. You don't have that money anymore, bro. You wanted to live the life, and now the reality is you're looking at your account, and now you're all stressed out because now you have to work even harder. Now you're like, crap, how do I get that money? Now you're like, I got to get a second job. I gotta maybe even take out another loan. Or you just got to just man up and just get rid of it. Either way, if you're buying it on credit, it's not yours. And the funny thing is I learned this lesson in 2008. I learned this lesson 10 years ago. And I really felt this pain, I really felt this pain, and I felt this pain for other people. Because when I would see people buy houses, it really felt like they thought they had made it. And then to see that crushed, and then to see that they felt that pain. But now 10 years later, you can almost see that they haven't remembered that lesson. You see people are just still consuming, only to just keep up with the Joneses, only to just keep up this mirage, this facade that's not even real. And the amount of stress that it takes to keep doing that, to just keep doing that, Maybe some people learn their lessons and they're like, I will never buy again. I will only rent. And they're doing that. But then some people just don't remember that. And I'm not just using this as hyperbole. I mean, you can go look at the numbers. Look how much money credit card companies are worth. Look how much debt the average American holds. It's unbelievable because nobody has to have that debt. I mean, sometimes people are born without arms, or they're born blind, or they're born, into poverty, whatever. They can't control that situation. But you can control the debt you're in. And then I know there's this thing about, well, what about medical bills, Erik? Well, what about medical bills? I know what you're going to say. And no, not all of you were struck as victims to some horrible disease that you couldn't control. And then now you're stuck with hospital bills. A lot of people's hospital bills come from operations and procedures or medications for things that could be completely controlled and avoided. If you have some kind of stomach or digestive issue, IBS, Crohn's, you've had surgery. I know people who've had surgery. That was your own doing. Chances are you could control it. If you think I'm wrong, you think I'm being an asshole, fine. I don't care. The truth is most people's digestive problems are 100% in their control. That's just the fact. I'm sorry. It sucks. I learned it the hard way myself. All this stuff is in your control, but you don't have to succumb to thinking you need to live this life that's not yours. You don't have to get the new car. You don't have to get the new clothes. You don't have to buy the house. You don't have to eat like shit. You don't have to be sedentary. You don't have to have a PlayStation. You don't have to, sit around just eating garbage, playing Madden, and working 40 hours a week at a job you hate. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to be with the person you're with. You don't have to do anything. But if you do something, do it within who you really are. And don't allow yourself to be a victim. I'm a victim. You don't have to be a victim. Stop being a fucking pussy. Seriously. Stop it. Stop being a goddamn victim. Get your shit together. Look in the mirror. Say, this is who I am. It sucks. I'm trying to do it. It's scary. Oh, God. Sometimes you don't like who you are. But you got to be honest. You got to be real. Otherwise, you're going to be fucking living through crippling debt, and you might be living in the high life for a year, but then you're going to spend 30 trying to fucking fix that shit. And your whole life's going to go by. And it's going to add more stress and more heart disease and more cancer and more diabetes to your life. That's the goddamn truth. Thank you guys for listening here. I hope you enjoyed the episode. This is obviously not the last time I'm going to talk about money. Because I find it a very interesting issue. But yeah, I find it in the terms of being holistic a-hole and being holistic and living, kind of spiritually minded and trying to relieve stress. Don't do this to yourself, dude. There's no point. All you're doing is becoming a statistic, quite frankly. And you're better than that, especially if you're a holistic a-hole. You're better than that, and you know where you need to be? You need to be in the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group, 100%. If you're not there, you're missing out. So go join up with the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group, subscribe to the podcast, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Holistic A-Hole, all that is there. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If it's your first time here, take some time, binge on the previous podcast, get it reacquainted with the Holistic A-Hole, and I'll catch you on the Facebook group, baby. I'll see you there. Have a great weekend. Peace.